When I was 16, I was doing what other 16-year-olds did and just applying to colleges. And that was where I was asked one very simple and actually really not so simple question, and that was, what was my major? What did I want to major in? At the time, I really didn't have a clue. I thought about it a little bit. Both my parents were accountants and they seemed to be living pretty good lives, and it seemed to be that you could do really a lot of things with an accounting major. So I made the decision, partly because I knew what I needed to do because my parents had already done it before, and secondly, it wasn't so specific or niche that I couldn't do other things. So then fast forward a few years later, instead of being 16 years old, I was 20, and I was asked a very simple, but not really all that simple question, and that was, welcome to the Big Four, do you want to work in audit or tax? This one, at the same time when I was asked, I didn't really have a definitive answer yet. But I took the same logic as my last decision. I didn't want to pigeonhole myself into something that I didn't have many avenues to go into. So I decided to do audit. Because in my eyes, audit, I could do a lot of different things. I could become a partner, I could leave the Big Four and go into industry and work as an accountant, as a controller, become a CFO like my father is, or I could go into finance. But the way I saw tax is that if I went into tax, well then, I'll just be in tax. Now tack on another 4 years later. I'm 24 years old, and now I'm being posed with another question. A very simple, but really not so simple question. Chris, why haven't you left the Big Four? I feel like a lot of my friends who work in the Big Four that I talk to, or other prospective students who are currently applying to go into Big Four or some sort of accounting role, everyone kind of says the same thing. Oh, I don't want to be in Big Four too long, it sounds too hard, the hours are too long, and I just don't want to put myself through that. And that's a super fair point. A lot of the friends that I've started with in the Big Four about 3 years ago, half of them have left, half of them are staying, and some are leaving now as we speak. And the question always is like, yeah, it was too much for me, or I think I'd rather do something else, always a little boring. Chris, when are you thinking of leaving? And the truth of the matter is, I'm not. I don't plan on leaving. Not anytime soon, that is. I started my career in the Big Four about 3 years ago. I've completed 3 busy seats. And to be honest with you, I plan to do another 3 at least. You see, working in the Big Four, it is fairly grueling. The hours can be pretty intense, the pressure is really high, and for people who are not prepared for that, it could be a bit of a culture shock once you graduate from college and start working in the Big Four. It can be pretty intense. But there is a benefit to that intensity. One, I'm starting to see that your fundamentals in accounting are really truly tested and honed because you get to see so many different things. Secondly, because there's so much turnover in the Big Four, the promotion rate is pretty simple. It's almost like going back to school. After a few years, you are a sophomore, then you're a junior, then you're a senior. In the Big Four, at least in my firm, the first 2 years you're associate. After that, if you do well, you're promoted to senior. Do another 3 years of senior, then voila, you're a manager, buddy. And that's the whole point as to why I want to spend at least 5+ years of my career in the Big Four. Is because it allows me to get to the manager position pretty freaking fast. Not too long ago, I was talking to my senior manager. He's been working in the Big Four about almost 10 years now, and he's the last person within his class that he started with that is still in the Big Four. Everyone else has left and gone into industry or done something else, or just quit the Big Four. For him, he knows a lot of people who left as a senior and got, better jobs with better pay as a senior accountant. The problem is that 10 years later, or 5 or 8 years later, they're still senior accountants. They haven't made the jump to manager. And usually it's not because they're incompetent or not very good and they can't be promoted. It's just the fact that in industry, businesses, they promote and hire people based on a business need. So let's say you're a really stellar senior accountant in your private industry job, and you have really great managers and directors above you. Unless they are quitting or retiring, there's no need to promote you at any point. There's no need to have another manager. And sometimes, let's say if a manager or director was to be leaving, sometimes the company might opt to bring in new talent so they can bring in a fresh perspective, someone with more experience in a different way, and thus you're passed over for promotion. So the only way you could really get promoted is to leave and go into another private industry job. But it's hard to sell yourself as, hey, hire me as a senior manager or a manager in your private firm, even though I only have experience as a senior accountant in some years in Big Four and then a lot of years in this private industry job. With that being said, it's the want and desire not to be stuck in my career that's still keeping me in the Big Four. A lot of people leave before manager because the Big Four is very grueling. But I think there's benefits to staying a little bit longer so you're promoted to manager, so that when you leave Big Four as a manager, you can get a job as a manager in the private industry. For me personally, this is a no-brainer. I want to stay till manager and then get a job in private industry as manager or controller. I'm not sure why other people don't do this. Maybe they see this as well and think, hey, that's a really good idea, but they just are so unhappy in the Big Four that they just want to leave as soon as possible. For me personally, I think I got very lucky that I'm on a very good team and work with people that I very much like. I can't say that it's always been the case in my 3 years. There's times where I contemplate, like, maybe I should try and find a new job just because the bosses and managers that I was working with, we just didn't click very well together. Granted, after 3 busy seasons, this is what I say now. Things can change. Maybe I might be like the rest of everyone else and decide, you know what, this is too much. I don't like what I'm doing. I don't like who I'm working with. And I want to get out regardless of being stuck as a senior or at least being put as a senior accountant somewhere else. Life is long and it takes you in unexpected directions, but it's always good to have a plan, but just know that the plan's never really always going to go to plan. Well, that being said, I'm curious what you guys think. Do you guys have any comments, concerns about it? And let's say if you're in the Big Four already and you're working or you have an internship or you're trying to get into the Big Four, how long are you planning to stay? Do you want to stay very long like me, or do you want to become partner, or do you want to kind of get in and get out as soon as possible? That being said, my name's Chris. Thank you very much for watching to the end of the video. Please don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Boom!